Oh, I can hear you now. Good morning or good afternoon, I guess.
Hey, good afternoon, buddy. Yeah,
Hi.
sorry, I have like a laptop for work and a personal like my personal PC, and
Mm-hmm.
sometimes like when I switch back and forth, my mic goes crazy.
Oh, no worries. Yeah, I get that too with I sometimes use AirPods, sometimes I'll use an actual microphone or headphones
Yeah,
and it'll go crazy.
yeah, man. Thanks for meeting with me. I really appreciate it.
Mm-hmm. So we're gonna go over some Blue Farm coaching, right? And you're playing
Yeah,
my list right now.
yeah. I was running Nato's list, but I switched off of it to try the turbo variant. I've been on more of a grindy blue farm list since. Like it's been last summer that I switched over to it.
Mm.
So just to start, I'm gonna give an overview of so we get a baseline. So I've been playing Magic since Onslaught Block when I
Onslaught.
was like 12. Yeah, I was 12. I'm 36. So I've been playing it and been involved in Magic for like over 20 years.
Wow.
So I've yeah, so I know so I say that it's like I know like stack interaction, like how the stack works, like all of that tiny minutia.
Mm-hmm.
My coaching just needs to specifically come from like how to play the deck and like how you pivot, like what points do you pivot in the deck. Like I saw in chat someone asked you about Snapback,
Mm-hmm.
and you had a response that it kind of like synergized with Necro.
Okay.
So, and in that particular instance, like how does Snapback work with that? And I played modern for a long time. I only stopped playing modern when they banned Violent Outburst because it just seemed kind of. I was
Oh,
a
the
crashing
cascade,
footfalls.
the three
Yeah,
mana cascade instant.
yeah,
Oh yeah,
and where you just flip in living end. It's literally you just get to play your living end on your opponent's instep and then swing for like 40 damage
yeah, yeah,
and win the game. So I like degenerate stuff like that. So it's one reason why like CDH like really really I was like, oh my gosh, I get to just do like the most degenerate stuff ever.
yeah. That's how I
Um,
started playing CH too. I actually started playing Magic, around COVID or like a year after COVID. So roughly around 2020, I started playing this game, and I started playing
nice.
casually, and I was like, man, I wish I could do more stuff than just play creatures and get board wiped every turn.
Yeah, that's it. We were oh man, like me and my father-in-law plays, like I got my father-in-law into it, and he's like big into CDH now too. He's got a CDH Stella Lee list and he's got a CDH Tim McCark list.
Oh, okay. Tim the Clark, that's a really fun one. It goes really
Yeah.
fast.
He really likes, taking 20-minute turns
Oh
and
no,
getting to resolve one spell 5 times.
that's hilarious.
But yeah, we were playing. I was playing Animar because it's one of my more casual decks, and I just like Animar. And I got it one turn. I got it up to like an 11-11, and in a casual game, and people freaked out, and he did not last past the end of my turn.
Yeah, that
Immediately got dealt with.
that makes sense. Let's see. You wanted to talk about the snapback interaction. Um,
Yeah, and that kind of like that those card choices, like those kind of like fringe cards or cards you may not see at the surface, like why this works in the
oh,
deck,
sure,
like
sure, sure.
that interaction.
I can talk about more about the individual card choices, I guess. But I wasn't very high on snapback. Like before Dockside was banned because I was playing Teferi and Snap, and I thought that was good enough. But without Dockside, obviously, Snap isn't as good anymore because you don't have a broken ETB you want to double. Um, and then I'm not playing Cradle or anything either. Obviously, I can't play Cradle, but there's no super rituals with Snap or Ewit combos either. The main idea is that Snapback is a free piece of interaction, right? Especially when you're in those mid range slogs with Ristic Study and you have a quarter of the deck in your hand, you can just pitch a random blue spell to pitch cast this. Um, I think this is especially helpful because I see a lot of Timna Thrasios in my local meta, and they're all playing Brewmaster combo, and with that you're able to snap back the Brewmaster with the ETB on the stack. It'll tag the Druid, and then it'll get lost in exile forever. Um,
Gotcha. Okay.
the other thing is, you were noting, right? I was saying it has synergy with Necropotence, and that's because
Mhm.
like when you have like 30 cards in your hand, um, something that you can do is you can snap back pitching like a random blue card, and then hold priority and offer. You can't refuse it at instant speed, so you go from 1 mana to 2 mana at instant speed, and that also
Oh, okay.
that also color fixes you too, which is like the most busted
Mhm.
part, is that there's no like real ritual in this game that you can do like at instant speed from 1 mana to 2 mana that makes any color of mana. And you always
Okay.
usually have blue up anyway, so it's super easy to convert it. Especially if you have like, let's say like 1 or 2 mana, and you have like a bunch of rocks in your hand with your Necro in your end step. Sometimes you just need that little extra mana, like from 1 to 2 for like a Born Upon a Wind, right?
Yeah.
There's nothing else that besides like Simian Spirit Guide to give you land plus ritual into Born.
Gotcha. Okay.
And
That makes sense. And I was that brings me to. Oh, sorry. Go ahead. I didn't
this
mean to
just
talk over you.
gives this just gives more like redundancy to the deck, in which we're playing a lot of rituals.
Makes sense. Yeah, because I was going to ask about an offer too, because some lists like don't even run it because you can color fix your opponents. But now, and starting to see they're just changing the whole frame of mind about how this deck works.
Mm-hmm.
And instead of you can keep a hand that's got 4 land in it, or 3 or 4 land, you're like, oh, well, I can eventually get to a Timna if I have an interaction piece
Mm-hmm.
with more mid range variant where this deck makes all of its mana from rituals and explosive mana sources. They need to prioritize that, like working with that on the stack too.
For
Okay.
sure. And I like how explosive the mana base is, because you can use that to either get like a payoff like Ad Nauseum or Necro, or you can just bridge into Ristic Study or Smothering Tithe, and those are super busted as well. Or even like One Ring too.
Yeah. Um, I've so question about the One Ring.
Mm-hmm.
I've seen in like one of your coaching videos, and there's been like talk about it. With the Blue Farm deck, especially One Ring versus no One Ring.
Mm-hmm.
So you are running the One Ring with not like really any copy effects.
Gotcha.
So is there a reason for that? Because it seems like it would be less mana efficient just from the outside looking in.
Gotcha. So, I'm a more like Grixis proactive, oriented shell. So I'm looking to just like push the pace of the game. I'm not looking to sit back and copy other people's stuff, right?
Okay.
That's a little parasitic, and sometimes that doesn't work in all of your games. This proactive strategy does, where you're constantly pushing yourself ahead. Like for example, if you have like a copy enchantment or like a mirror maid, and you're in a pod with like not a lot of blue decks or decks that don't typically try to find Ristic Study, you basically have dead cards in your hand, and I just like how more proactive this deck is.
Okay, I got you.
I still think
That makes
that
sense.
the Mirror Maid strategy is a completely fine strategy to be playing. It's still pretty good with like all the copy effects, right? Having 3 Ristic Studies is pretty good, and that's
Yeah,
just the super high roll on it. But the low roll is that you just have dead cards in your hand.
yeah. Okay. Now, do you feel that this deck is this turbo slanted version? Do you feel that the it sets the floor lower for the deck, but the ceiling's much higher? Whereas a mid range version, the floor is much higher, but it's much closer to the ceiling.
Yeah, I
If
do
that makes
agree.
sense.
I do agree with your interpretation of that. Just because you can high roll stuff like wheel into tithe into like a face breaker, and then you'll just look at like
Yeah.
20 cards. The nice thing about this deck is that if you want to pivot early, like a turn one, turn two Necro, especially if you like mold a four and you keep like two lands, Dark Grit Necro, um, this deck converts Necro way better than the Esper version where you have all the copy effects. Just because like, what are you gonna do with Aristic Study if you are at 10 life in your end step, right?
Yeah.
Versus this deck, right? We play Reign of Filth, we play Coin the Weak, we play Snapback Offer, we play Jessica's Will, we play Bergie, right? Those cards help us tremendously in converting your Necropotence.
Gotcha.
And it's
So,
just.
oh,
Sorry,
sorry. Go ahead.
continue.
No, you're good. I do this in my meetings all day. I'm so sorry if I talk over
Oh,
you. I
gotcha.
don't mean to.
No worries. So
I apologies.
it's this idea that you're playing like a mid-range deck that can go extremely proactive if it chooses to. That's the fundamental like flexibility of this deck, is that you can choose to sit in the game with a Ristic and a Tithe. You can choose to win the game if you want to with Necropotence. You can choose to like sit back and mid-range game plan with like your Facebreaker, your Bowmaster, your Lotho, and your Timna. Um, yeah, you can do a lot of stuff with this deck. It's extremely flexible in this regard, and sometimes like you'll just draw the gas and then they're just dead.
Yeah. Um, I so that leads me into, I guess the next question that was on my list of questions, and that is, let's say, for example, you have a hand where you've mulled down and you get to play Ristic Study, but let's say that you mulled the four and it's Ristic Study, two lands, and a Simian Spirit Guide, so it's just a turn two Ristic Study.
Hmm.
After that, when you get that, like as a turbo variant, slanted variant, how do you transition that? And I know it's not, and I'm sorry, I'm trying to word this correctly and not to ask it on a super surface level, like, oh, you just draw cards.
Hmm.
But how does your turbo game plan, like in games that you played and in your experience in that situation, is it just you sit back and be patient and you don't try to push anything? Maybe you try and politic a little bit, like, hey, I'm not the problem. Like, I'm not the issue at the table. This other person is.
Okay.
Or like, is there a different like a card you're looking for?
So
If
there.
that makes sense.
Yeah. That makes complete sense, and I think a lot of people have problems on what to do after they have landed a advantage piece, right? Because there's not like a inherent like straightforward line besides, oh, you should be winning the game or whatever. Like that's such a
Yeah.
blanket statement. um my the main idea is that if you get like an early Ristic Study, you want to start developing mana, and from that point you can start accruing resources into finding a window. Have you heard of the window theory?
Like how far you can open your window, or how like no, I guess since giving this kind of not really specific answer, the answer is no.
Yes. So in this case, right, when I'm referencing the window theory, it's there are multiple windows in the game where your window becomes bigger on when to push. So like for example, this is influenced by how much interaction your opponents have used, if they're tapped out or not. Sometimes that could be like a false alarm since there is so much free interaction in this format. Something else could be like if you have multiple pieces of interaction or if you have multiple silences in your hand, right? This just opens your window in which you can push. If you don't have a clear window, that just means your window isn't big enough to push through, and misusing your window can lead to your other opponents picking up the ball and then just winning the game.
Makes sense. Okay, yeah, I got you. I follow.
Okay, so
And
with that in mind, right? Um, you want to pick and choose your windows accordingly with this deck. This deck rewards you for being extremely patient at times because you just have higher card quality than every other deck in the format. Like we run more pieces of interaction than any other deck can. We run more efficient combo lines. Like Thassa's Oracle Demonic Consultation is 3 mana. Sorry. And Thassa's Oracle and Tainted Pact is 4 mana. Um, just straight up casting a breach into an LED. The startup cost for that is just 2 mana, right?
yeah,
And these lines of play are extremely efficient, so we're able to pack more interaction and more disruptive pieces within the deck, or just more mana as well to cast your other spells into your efficient win cons.
gotcha.
And because of that, you're able to just sit back and relax at times and just wait till the window opens because like for example a popular deck in my meta is Ragrack Thras, and this deck
Hmm.
requires
Yeah,
incremental advantage every turn, uh, and you can visibly see everything on their board, and they're required to play these out, and it's not an extremely efficient deck in that regard, right? Their main like combo line really is like an Aboro Breeze Collar with a Cradle that has 6 creatures and a Talon Gates of Madara. That's a 3 card combo um that you can interact with at most times. It's not like super straightforward, and it's something that like we can compare to in terms of efficiency.
gotcha. Makes sense.
So like for like that early Ristic idea, right? We just drop an advantage piece. If it draws cards, you're likely to try to find pieces like Soul Ring or Smothering Tithe, or even Lotho to generate you more mana, or even Facebreaker or Burgi, right? The
Yeah,
the main idea is that, and this seems a little obvious, but it might not be inherent to like many people, but you just need a combination of cards and mana to win this game. And if you're able to just find it in any combination, like even like Lotho plus Esper Sentinel is cards plus mana. It just means you have to work a little harder because it's not Tithe plus Ristic, but it is still pushing you in the direction you want to be at the end of the game.
yeah, that totally makes sense, and it aligns with what I heard you say in your videos, which is the get the objective is to play the game for as long as possible,
Mm-hmm. We
like keep
we
yourself in
grind
as
we
long as possible.
grind so we grind so well with this deck. We're usually a deck that can land the most early Ristic studies or advantage pieces besides maybe like Rog side because they have more explosive mana than we do, but we have higher card quality as well. So
Yeah.
just the more cards we draw, the better we are.
Do you prioritize in your games? Do you prioritize getting a silence effect in hand or on the board before you try and jam a win? Because as you said, somebody being tapped out with 6 cards in hand doesn't necessarily mean they don't have any interaction.
Mm-hmm. And
So yeah, just want to get your thoughts on that.
sure, sure, sure. If you want to just keep expanding on that, like I want to hear all your thoughts.
Yeah, so when you have like Voice of Victory or GA, like I saw, one of your explanations for not really being on Mistrise Village is because it's more expensive than just tapping your Cavern of Souls for GA.
Mm-hmm.
You're spending one more mana, and I see now the through the conversation we've had through this session, like and the point of the deck making all of its mana so fast, how that one mana can be a big deal. Um, but let's say like you have your win in hand. and you prioritize? Let's say you're squeezed on mana.
Mm-hmm.
Do you prioritize? Hey, maybe hold back a turn and put this Voice of Victory on the board to see what people do.
So
Put this.
that's not a
Sorry.
so that play pattern is not something I like to do just because putting out a Grand Abolisher of Voice of Victory. I get that like Voice of Victory has the mobilized text on it, but half the time
Mhm.
I ignore it just because I think personally speaking it's more of a trap. Just because there are so many creature decks running around and they are playing like 4 or 3 clones in their deck, so they're easily able to take advantage of cloning our silences
Gotcha.
and
Okay.
then just winning because of that. Um, if you aren't able to win in that current moment, the idea then is to either like accrue, like put down more pieces that accrue more advantage, because if you're not winning at that time, there is no purpose in just sitting there and do
Yeah.
nothing, right? Um,
Oh,
and the other nice thing is that we play Valley Floodcaller and Born Upon a Wind. So if your window isn't immediately obvious, you can just sit on Born Upon a Wind plus advantage engines, whatever, and then when everyone has like, for example, if you pass a turn and someone else tries to like go for a win, once you know that you've drawn like a couple cards off of it, you like all everyone's used like all their resources on the win attempt, you're able to just win on top of it now. Whereas you wouldn't
gotcha.
have been able to before because everyone was holding up interaction for like your turn or the turn cycle, right?
Makes sense. So kind of, fainting and just getting them to throw all their resources at one thing while you have another path.
Mm-hmm. And the other thing that you can think about is you just track what counter spells have been used. Like for example, I do this very often where I'll just ask for a graveyard check, and sometimes I'll be checking for my mnemonic betrayal in hand, and other times I'll literally just count out what free counter spells they've used. So like, um, the most common ones, and I think we run most of them, are like fierce, swat,
Yeah.
force, pact, mindbreak, trap, mental misstep, right? And there's probably a couple others I'm missing. Like I know Ragrack Thras plays Flare of Denial too in their deck.
Mhm.
Flare of Duplication is also a piece of interaction you can look out for, and it's just like these minute details that you need to be aware of, because um, it changes how your play is immediately if you know they have not used any free interaction versus if they have used free interaction. Something else to look out for is like Commandeer and Misdirection. Those cards aren't usually seen as often, but they are seen in like lower color blue shells, just because they're lacking card quality, right? They can't run four colors worth of interaction.
Yeah.
The other thing is that you have to understand your table dynamic in this regard, and just see if like your opponents are posturing forward, if they're posturing backwards, and what you can gain from reading their like game state, right? Because like sometimes people will just like waste all their resources on heuristic study and say, "Oh, I'm out of interaction now." Like th- at that point, like you can grasp that they don't really have anything left, so your window becomes bigger.
Yeah. Gotcha. Okay. Makes total sense. Um, you talk about Rog Thras. I was playing at a CDH tournament here locally in Knoxville last month, and we had a Rog Thras player, and he played Song of Creation
Mm-hmm.
and couldn't convert, so he just passed his turn. And he was like, "I'm not a threat. I don't have any cards in hand." I was like, "Yeah, but you have a Song of Creation on the battlefield."
Yep.
Like he could just absolutely non-deterministically just storm off into the rest of your deck.
Yep.
Like that is absolutely a huge thing.
I absolutely hate Rogthras because all of the pilots just say, "Oh, I'm not doing anything. I'll show you my hand, and it's like the hand. Obviously, the cards in someone else's hand matter, but that deck is a permanent base deck. So if you see them with like a cradle and like three untappers, it's like it's not something you want to be working with.
Is in talking about that, and you referenced the rise in creature based decks. Is there a, I guess, an argument for having one board wipe, like a deluge in the deck,
Yeah,
or running, oh my gosh, deflecting swat, not deflecting swat, the free one, deadly relic.
Deadly Rock. So those cards are pretty decent. I think with this shell, I have I don't really have a problem playing against Ragrack Thras. I guess maybe that's like personal bias, but I
Mhm.
either like take them out back and shoot them early, because they're like I'm gonna be honest, their deck doesn't play a lot of interaction. It's just like they've cut Swan Song. Some of them have cut Force of Negation. They don't play Pyro or Red Blast. They're strictly playing only the free stuff, and just I don't think that's a high enough density. And I think I've proven this theory multiple times where I just jam early into them, and they don't have enough interaction in their deck to stop me.
Gotcha. Okay, that makes sense.
Like for example, right? If you did like if you did a random cross cut of 10 cards from Blue Farm, you're likely to find some piece of interaction, maybe even two or three. If you do a ten random cards from Ragrack Thras, it's extremely likely that like you might not even get a piece of interaction, or you might only get like one and like a bunch of random spells like Chatter Storm or creatures.
Yeah,
Like those don't help you from not dying. And I
yeah.
think
Because you're. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
I think it is currently like one of the most parasitic decks in that regard, because no one is willing to push the push the ball to say, especially early game. Everyone is like, well, let's get all our advantage pieces out, but um that I think early game is like their weakest window in which you can exploit it. And then the other thing
Gotcha.
is that
Okay.
if you're not playing under, you can also play over, because, like I said, you're running more pieces of interaction than them, and realistically, the only pieces that you have to be um, worried about is enduring vitality, like Earthcraft, Valley Flood Caller, or anything that breaks their mana. So like sometimes a cradle will do that, but not by itself. Sometimes they'll have like a cradle plus an untapper, and that's when you should be a little worried. Um,
Gotcha. Yeah.
I mean, like our card quality is so high, and once it gets to like the mid range game plan, if you're sitting on Ristic and Tithe, I think that still outvalues their deck by a large margin.
Yeah. I agree with that. Um, and I was gonna say, can we? What is the other question? Oh, have you tested gifts?
So I have tested gifts in in for my slot, and I'll just give you a couple reasons why I don't like it. Um, it's just not something I regularly tutor for, right? I don't even tutor for intuition unless like the game is like completely over, and at that point you have so many other ways to convert like that game state of, oh, the game is over. Does that make sense?
Gotcha. Yeah, no, that absolutely. It's kind of a win more
Mm-hmm.
card instead of like being. It doesn't really. It's taking up a slot to do something that intuition already does, and in this deck, and I feel the same way. I'm on board with you about it. I just wanted to get your take.
Yeah.
Because it's one extra card, but in this deck, you've probably already got the interaction in your hand. If you're running an intuition like naked into something, that's your own fault.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like in this deck.
Yeah.
Okay, I get it.
And
Cool.
the other thing is like when gifts is better than intuition is when you are turboing out an early breach line because it requires less cards to get started. However, I think that's a bad argument since we also just play Necropotence and Ad Nauseam, and I find these to be extremely more efficient in converting you to a win state than Gifts Ungiven is.
Yeah.
And
I
then,
uh oh I was wondering too,
mhm,
in Nato's version, he had been testing out grinding station.
that okay, that I think
The
he's
bridge.
just I think he's just trolling on that, but um I can see
Okay.
the idea where it pushes early breach attempts better because Rogsai also does this where they they aren't relying on brain freeze to start looping you, and then the nice thing about grinding station is that when you do play it, it triggers itself on ETB. So if you have like two rocks in play, you can, like, for example, play the grinding station and then eat your Mox Opal and then eat your
Mhm.
Soul Ring, and you'll mill 6 cards off of playing it, and then you can repeat that process. So I think the main idea is that you're able to cheat the first activation of grinding station to give you +6 instead of +3.
Gotcha. Okay. So in that regard, it can help jumpstart, but also I can see the argument against it, because if we're I don't know, if you draw that card more often than not in this version of the deck, I would assume you already have enough in your hand. Like you're not going to draw a grinding station like, oh man, like I can really build around this.
Yeah, no,
And
it's something
yeah,
that
and you don't want to tutor for it. Like you don't want to waste your enlightened tutor on it
yeah, yeah,
because we have such other high quality targets. Okay.
100%. I think I think the grinding station in this deck specifically is just really fake. Like we have
That's
brain freeze to convert our underworld breach, and I don't think you need another piece to convert breach. This is a great breach deck just because we have like silences and stuff, so we're playing more towards like almost a mid-range game plan. Obviously we can turbo out a win condition early, but usually we want to sit behind like silences or a piece of interaction, and then when it's time to go, you can push the button to go, and at that point you have accrued so much resources that, like, what does grinding station realistically do at like the end state of the game when you have so many
nothing.
resources to convert versus just
Yeah.
having brain freeze, which would be more efficient with the storm trigger as well.
There is, I think, man. So that hearing the way that you think about and the things that you're opening my mind to about how you think about the turbo slanted version, oh my gosh, like I feel like this is just in hearing you talk about it and my previous experiences with mid-range, just a straight mid-range version of the deck. Like at one point I ran Rev and Professional Facebreaker, just to sit and try and cruise as much value as possible.
Mm-hmm.
But hearing these like just gameplay decision how you should play the game, I feel like every blue farm player should play like this, like everyone.
Yeah, and I don't know, my I think my results show for themselves, but
Yeah, absolutely. Like
I
I don't think that's even a question, man,
and
in my
like
opinion.
I think other especially like newer blue farm players, like I can't really fault them because they are newer to the deck, so it's like, oh, I see Timna Crumb in the command zone, we can like rely on them to draw cards, and like I get it, they're fine advantage pieces, and I used to do this too, but um I just think Rhystic Study and Mystic Remora are just extremely busted cards, and being able to rely on them and then have a fallback game plan of our commanders is extremely well positioned in this meta.
Yeah. And I also, just speaking from personal experience, it gets really boring just either tutoring Esper or Mockingbird with Ranger Captain. And when you get to tutor Darcy and put her out and then
Oh,
gain incremental value, which is card selection, which is very closely akin to card draw, it's amazing.
oh, it's
And
so
I
fun.
feel like it opens up like a new layer of the deck because not only are you filtering, like getting to draw more cards, you're getting to filter what you're seeing,
And
which is
the other
essentially like
thing,
two of the most powerful things in Magic,
oh,
period.
for sure, for sure. The other thing is like it's great at converting like low breach piles. I think that's why we're
Yeah.
thinking about, or I guess he's thinking about grinding station right now. Is I don't think he's on DRC, and DRC just converts like weird underold breach piles easier because with like top deck tutors it can be very awkward at times, but DRC fixes this problem a lot.
It's yeah, no, this is, and man, all of your like the like generally I have been, or genuinely, excuse me, I've been looking for several months, man, on like just in the Timnacrom Discord, looking for anybody in my meta that's played Blue Farm for a while. And there's not a ton of like this particular type of information, like just the mentality around having to play the deck.
Mm-hmm.
Because I do feel like, and I've experienced this at tables, and I'm sure you've been playing it for a while, so you experience it as well. Sometimes you sit down and people see your commanders, and they're just like, "Oh, damn!" Like
Yep.
they're just put on the back foot immediately. So you are like public enemy number one
Yep.
just by the fact of playing Blue Farm,
Yeah, and
and that's it.
sometimes when that happens, right, you gotta ease them into what you're doing, right? Like, I like to be extremely transparent in what I'm doing until I'm not, obviously. But it's like, oh guys, I'm playing an Esper Sentinel, and then next turn I'm playing like a, a Mystic Remora, right? And like, I don't lie in game. I think it's like a shitty thing to do. Uh, but like if you want to lie, that's gonna be on you. But I prefer to be extremely transparent, and I found that to be extremely helpful in like having the pod correctly assess your position versus like you being public enemy number one for playing like a Ragavan.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's something that I need to work on as well as the politicking part. And coming from, constructed, like 60 card constructed, that's just something you don't ever have to deal with.
Oh yeah,
And it's literally who plays their deck the best.
yeah.
And that can, man, that's actually, like, just kind of talking out loud, kind of like detrimental to coming into like being a new CDH player, because you're honestly, in my opinion, if you keep your conversion or win rate around like 20 or 30%, like you're doing well because you're one out of four people in a pod.
Mm-hmm.
It's not just one on
Yeah.
one. But also, you can't sit down and just like, okay, I'm going to play my deck better than everybody else, because the other three people, like, somebody's going to try and stop you, or they're going to talk and they're going to gang up on you.
Yeah.
So it's just something like you're really not familiar with. And one thing, I've only really started going to tournaments in since like January, because I got a little bit more confident in the deck.
Mm-hmm.
But there too, like TEDH, man, that's another level to it,
Yeah.
because the politicking in those games is ridiculous sometimes.
Oh, I'll sit up in a pod with like Freedom Waffle, and it's like I we literally just talk for 2 hours. Like
It
I think those are
was.
the most
Oh,
fun
sorry, good.
games. Sorry, I'm going off on a tangent, but I think those are the most fun games for me personally speaking. Is when like you're able to like just chill out and talk, and even if like you're if it's like mostly politicking, you still have a
Yeah.
lot to understand and to glean from the situation too. Like there's always a truth behind everything they say. So if you're
Mhm.
able to understand what they're trying to mean from that, you can better assess what they're trying to do and what problems they have in the game as well.
Yeah, no, you're absolutely right. It was so funny seeing because I watched the stream of the Heisenberg, like the just the stark contrast between the semifinals, which was like a 3 hour long, 2.5, 3 hour long game with Freedom Waffle,
Hmm.
and then in the finals where he just like had
Oh my god, that was
it.
I. He even took a picture of his mulligan with me in it because we did that a week before at SCG Con where we both took a picture of each other with our mulligans.
That's hilarious.
Yeah,
That's awesome,
yeah.
man. But no, like I don't mind if you go on a tangent because I really like hearing like thought process,
Okay.
like how you think about things and how these things appear to you because you're a seasoned player and like you said your results speak for themselves. So more often than not you think correctly in those positions.
Mm-hmm.
Um so I guess one of the two things I do have a couple of things I kind of want to get to. One is what are some uncommon lines? I know in the video that you made with the other Jason's like wife, like helping her with hands, like looking at hands. You had mentioned a situation where you had to reverse Thoracle, and you
Yep.
had the game like you just had it turn one, like turn two, you had it on reverse Thoracle. And you gave some examples on how you knew in the pod, like, hey, this window might be open, but those kinds of which what could seem from the outside looking in like a risky proposition, which is to, taint and pact away your whole deck on
Mm-hmm.
the someone else's end step. Because there are plenty of other points where someone can interact and make you draw a card through whatever way,
Sure.
you
Sure.
know.
Sure.
So how do you know, like, what is the thought process, like, okay, I'm clear to do this? Because to me it says that if I get stopped I'm just dead, like blown out completely.
Yep. So I think you're referring to the Snowy Summit story, but in top 16, and I guess if you're not referring to this, I think this is a great story anyways, but in this pod with Freedom Waffle in first seat, it was Glarb in second seat. I was in third seat, and Tim the Dargo was in fourth seat, and um, everyone just mulled low except for Glarb, and I knew at this point it was okay to reverse Thoracle, just just because especially how they were acting within the game too. I feel as if they were hesitant or nervous in this regard, right? And this only got bigger, or like the idea got even bigger in my head once Glarb dropped like 4 rocks into Doomsday,
Yeah,
and it was not interacted with because
gotcha, okay.
yep. And then at that point I played a or okay, so just to back up, I believe Evan Freedom Waffle kept 5, Glarb kept 7, I kept 6, and Tim the Dargo kept 4. And just analyzing the pod here, Kinnan doesn't keep early interaction, especially on a low mole. Like you can't afford to keep a low mole, especially in top cut where you can't like offer draw with like a pact, right? Um,
Yeah,
with that in mind, um, he's he is mulling for advantage to get back into the game. Glarb could have some combination of like turn to Glarb or a bunch of resources, whatever. Um, and then the Tim the Dargo player is a non-blue deck, so that's just another player that is less likely to interact with me. So only realistically in that situation, it is Glarb that will interact with me. And then
gotcha.
on turn one, Evan goes land dork. Glarb goes rock, activate Wish Claw, give it to Evan because he would only get a land off of that, and that's something that you can politic too with Wish Claw activations. Is that if you feel the need to like, you can almost auction it off, and sometimes your opponents will just be like, I will straight up not activate it or only get a land with it, which
Yeah,
is
gotcha.
something that is important because it's a huge politicking tool, is to pass around the Wish Claw, and it's something you need to understand how to use, because obviously you're not going to give it to like a player that's about to combo off unless they agree that they're getting like a basic land or a command tower off
Yeah.
their Wish
Okay.
Claw activation. But back to the story, I kept like a gemstone hand and a land with Thoracle, Tainted Pact, and Pact Negation. So I felt extra good about
Gotcha.
this
Okay.
reverse Thoracle. And once the turn cycle goes around, Tim the Dargo plays like ancient, or they go land Esper Sentinel, and then Evan goes land Kinnan, and then into copy artifact to copy the Esper Sentinel for more advantage, right? And then Glarg
Gotcha.
goes turn 2 Doomsday, and they're unable to immediately crack the pile. And I knew once the Doomsday started resolving that um, we did not have interaction at the table, and Evan was a little nervous in this regard, I'd have to say. So it's just like trying to read your opponents from this regard, and then once I cast up Tainted Pact, um, everyone started freaking out, and um, especially Evan was like, I have interaction for this. I don't want to use this because I want to use it on Garb. And at this point, with like the Tainted Pacts on the stack, you can literally just ask him, do you have interaction for this? I asked him, what kind of interaction do you have? And he was like, no, I'm not going to show you. I don't want you to play around it. And at this point, I knew he was bluffing. So I just emptied my deck till like the second. I revealed the second to last card, drew the last card for turn, and then cast a Thassa's Oracle, and then it resolved.
Gotcha. Okay. Okay. See, that's something too that I need to get better at, which is just reading like body language, posture, because sometimes I feel like I can get so honed in to like A to B to C,
Mm-hmm.
if that makes sense. Because in the non-turbo version of the deck, it to me personally, it really is like you talk about the window theory, and your window is not early game. Like you don't have an early game window. Your early game is setting up all of your advantage engines
Mm-hmm.
and just making sure that you can grind where your windows are in the mid and late game. And if you got to the late game, there's not really another deck out there that can maybe tip, not tip, but maybe Marnius. Like Marnius can grind with you pretty well, but I think that's about it in
Yeah,
my opinion.
or like I think most green decks, if they can land a Seedborn, can grind just as well as you, but obviously just don't let that sit around.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. Um, awesome. And the second thing, I just want to make sure we have a little bit of time to do this. Can
Mm-hmm.
we look at some sample hands and
Yeah,
talk
yeah,
through like sample openers?
yeah. We still have like 13 minutes left, so we're good. But yeah,
Gotcha.
we can look at some hands and just think about it. I noticed in one of your questions you asked about Misride's Village too.
Yes, yeah, and I kind of talked through that earlier, so I didn't ask it again.
Gotcha.
The it costing 1 mana less, and with the realization like all of our mana comes from fast sources,
Mm-hmm.
so 1 mana makes a difference.
Yep. And I think it I personally think it's more of a win more card, especially since we have Cavern of Souls already in the deck. It's like I
Yeah,
I think we
yeah,
we have three
because
silences that
you
are
cavern into GA, like what are they going to do? They
yeah.
can't do anything about that unless it and just don't be that person that plays it as your third spell per turn.
Yeah. It, it's obviously you're playing G as your first spell, so it's really hard to stop. Let's go into some hands. What are your thoughts? We've got a Burgy, a Hollowed Fountain, a Valley Flood Color, an Arid Mesa, Thoracle, Snapback, and City of Brass.
I think that's a kick immediately,
Yep, yep.
in my opinion.
I
Yeah,
agree.
this is a trap. This is an absolute trap hand.
Yeah, it doesn't. So why do you think it's a trap hand?
Because people are going to see, oh, I have Thoracle. I have my one piece that I don't have to tutor for, and then you may look at Valley Floodcaller, you may look at Burgy as well, and be like, oh, I have some advantage, and I have 3 lands.
Mm-hmm.
I can sit and just wait till turn 3, and that's not what we want to be doing in this deck. And remembering what you said in one of your coaching videos about this has a higher probability to lose you the game, or you wait too long and you're completely out of the game with no recourse and no real. I mean, the only way you're going to cast Snapback for free is to pitch your Valley Flood Caller or your Thoracle. So there's one of the reasons that you're keeping this hand gone immediately. So yeah, I think those are the reasons why this is a kick.
I completely agree with everything you just said there.
Okay.
I do think we want to try to do stuff on turn 1, turn 2 at the latest, just because we need to keep up tempo within the game.
And that's something too. Like I've got to learn how to kind of take the reins, the tempo, and just how to pull the game at my speed and in my favor.
Mm-hmm.
This is a kick. Like so close to being a keep, but no, there's no lands.
Yep. Let's say we're on 6 now.
Okay. So we're going down to 6. Here, I would say this is a kick as well. Yeah, you can gamble for something, but we're only at 6, and percentage points for going down to 5 and gambling and it getting thrown away. Because to me, I would look for a piece that we would be able to cast Wheel of Fortune with very quickly. Because if, in my opinion, this is just how I think about Wheel. If it goes to the third turn, Wheel's a dead card in your hand because all you're going to do is reload your opponents
Yeah, and
when they've already gotten
I
their
guess
pieces
we can
out.
talk a little bit about the philosophy behind Wheel too. Is I I actually think um it's only good if you're extremely desperate or extremely winning. Does that make sense?
Gotcha. Yes,
So,
absolutely.
like for example, like if you're extremely ahead in this regard, you have like rock, land, Wheel of Fortune on the play, right? That hand, sure, it can high roll, but it's likely that you just wheel into gas, right? Especially with this deck.
Yeah.
Um, Something that's desperate too is like, or like on the other side of the coin, something desperate is like you're like a turn 2 wheel in fourth seat, right? It's not the best play, but it maximizes your percentage versus sitting there and laying down on the floor.
Yeah. That makes sense considering and you can argue people can argue about it all day, but the data is there. The disparity in wins between like even fourth and third seat. At
Mm-hmm.
fourth it dips. It's like you have to do something drastic to keep yourself in the game.
Yep. And then the other thing is like if you're in an extremely winning position, let's say you have like a couple or like I guess a winning position would be like a resolved silence with like a smothering tithe, right? Like that's
Mhm.
obvious. That's like a no brainer, but it's something that like I have to kind of explain because it's not inherent. But your likelihood of converting, like you have onboard silence plus smothering tithe, is extremely high, and it is okay to play the chance at this point.
Yeah.
Like
Gotcha.
obviously,
Because you have smothering tides, so even if anybody draws, like you're gonna reload.
and like
Gotcha.
um
Okay.
obviously if you have like a deterministic line, this isn't something you go for, but just being able to play the chance, I really like this card.
Yeah, I absolutely have. In that tournament I was telling you about last month, I got a turn 1 wheel out and wheeled myself into a turn 3 ad nause and still got blown out because I wheeled them into interaction.
Yeah.
So
And
gotcha. Okay, so
it's something that you got to do sometimes because I think the Timna plan is like one of the last things you want to do, especially if it's only like Timna Timna is your only creature.
gotcha. It makes sense. I have fallen victim to the trap of, oh, I have a free interaction piece. I just need to play Timna.
Yeah, it's like this deck you can even like hard cast your free interaction sometimes. Obviously, it's not like the best thing, but the only things that are reliant on your commander being in play are deflecting slot and fierce, right? And like,
That is a great point. Holy crap! Like I've never. Sorry, I just realized this, and I've never thought about it in that way from that perspective. Like you only have two cards that are like wholly relying on your commanders.
yeah,
Okay, man. Okay,
yeah.
thank
Like
you.
other decks will play like SWAT, Fierce, SWAT, or like SWAT, Fierce, Rollick, and that still is only 3 pieces of interaction or 2 pieces in this regard versus all of the rest of the deck
Yeah,
in terms
dang.
of
Oh my gosh,
interaction.
I'm starting to see. Like, I'm sorry. I when I start to like connect the dots, I can get a tangent and like talk out loud
Oh
because I get
no, you're
excited
good.
about
You're
it.
good.
So
You're good.
I apologize, but yeah, no, I see that, and that when you talk about the window theory, that is where your early game window opens because how even Kinnan turn one or turn two is going to just be spent playing Kinnan. Like if you have Kark, they're going to play. Even if you have a cheap commander like Thrasios, you're going to prioritize hands that let you get that commander out as soon as possible.
Hmm.
And yeah, I see that's a window in itself. Cool, gotcha.
Let's say we're going to 5 here. What are your thoughts?
Okay. So just looking at the seven, this one is significantly more interesting, and we're going to go to five. First card I pitched, in my opinion, is LED. LED is a combo piece, doesn't really help us in any way, shape, or form.
Hmm.
The last one, I'm also going to pitch the Mystical Tutor because we have Demonic Tutor. Well, actually, no, hold on. I'm thinking wrong. Mystical Tutor. We already have. What were we Mystical Tutor for? Tutor for. Actually, no. Sorry. Um, man. I was thinking DemCon can get us a card advantage engine,
Oh, sorry. This is Demonic
but
Tutor.
oh, Demonic
Yeah,
Tutor.
yeah,
Sorry, I
yeah.
got you. Yeah, yeah, yeah. A Demonic Tutor can get us a card advantage engine
Hmm.
early. However, we still look like we may be a little bit choked on mana and being able to do that very quickly. So I was thinking about the Mystical Tutor. The Mystical Tutor can get us a Dark Writ, so that we can play something like a Remora. But in this situation, let's see. Okay, I'm just going to quit talking. Throw away the Valley Flood Caller and the LED, and we keep the other five.
So, what are you doing with this hand in the first 3 turns? Like, what are you doing?
First 3 turns, what I'm going to do is play for Forbidden Orchard, and then we're going to instep the Mystical Tutor to go grab a Dark Writ.
Hmm.
The Dark Writ is going to be cast on. We're going to play our Cavern of Souls. Um, and actually, I think I am messing up because it's the Cavern of Souls being colorless mana.
Hmm.
It's not colored mana, so that whole plan is kind of just blown up.
Yep.
So knowing that's blown up, I don't know. I may pitch this.
Yeah, I completely agree with you. You can choose to pitch this hand. I'd say if you mold the 4, you could keep this hand just because something unique you can actually do here is like turn 1 Orchard, turn 2 name Human. You actually keep the LED in this regard. Uh, and you play the LED, you cast the Demonic Tutor, and then you hold priority and crack your hand uh, for 3 blue, and then you find Ristic Study.
Gotcha. Okay. Yeah. No, that's something I didn't even see.
This is only something that I will do on like a low mulligan, just because
Okay.
like if you keep a higher one and you try to do this, you will get um, absolutely blown out. And I guess you can argue for this to resolve, but it's easier to argue for this if you're on a lower mulligan. Plus, when you're on a higher mulligan, you never keep this hand in the first place because you just have a higher likelihood of finding another draw engine later.
Gotcha. Okay. That makes sense. That makes total sense. And that kind of leads me into like one of the other questions I had as well. So let's say that this hand, we really did like have to mull to four and we get Ristic Study out, and we have no hand
Hmm.
with getting Ristic Study out. What, in your opinion, like in your experience, what have you had to do in this particular situation to kind of, to convert or to play the game as long as you can?
Um, just like the simple answer is that you literally just sit there and you just draw your cards, right? It's like that's like the blanket answer is that oh, you just need to like find and make your land drops accordingly, and eventually you will draw into like what converts you to a win. the
Okay.
the main thing that you have to look out for when you mulligan low and you find a draw engine is that one, it doesn't get countered. So you just like, if someone is hesitating on like whether or not they should counter your draw engine, you just have to let them know, right? There are more opponents in this game than just me, and I think blowing interaction on a Ristic study is a stupid idea when someone else could potentially have a window because of that, right?
Yeah, you're essentially going to king make someone because you're moving into a 3 pod.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And
Gotcha.
the other thing is like, I don't interact with anyone else's advantage pieces unless it is like they have double draw engine and I'm interacting with a smothering tithe.
Gotcha.
Just because that's like the critical breaking point for them. But like, let's just say someone is playing like a Mystic Remora and I have a Mental Misstep in my hand. I think it is more valuable to me just to keep them in the game rather than having a 3 player pod, because you can also they can also help back you up with interaction, and when they are playing Remora or stuff like that, they're usually a little behind in the game, or they've mulliganed low for this stuff. So it's I don't think it's correct to punish the player for and then have them do nothing for the rest of the game.
Gotcha. Okay. Makes sense.
Yep. And then when you do mull low and you find Ristic Study, you find mana next. So like you're maybe if you draw like let's say a Enlightened Tutor, you can find like a Smothering Tithe or a Soul Ring, or like sometimes uh, someone will Scheming Symmetry you. You can get like those options as well, or like if you draw into a Lotho, that's a pretty good scenario as well.
Yeah. I have you seen Codus the Fang Keeper?
Yes, yes,
One of I have a really good friend of mine that I go to F&M with, and he built like a CDH version of Codus,
yeah,
and him scheming symmetry like someone. It's pretty funny.
yeah.
So they just like, okay, what card am I going to steal?
Yeah, I actually worked a little with Gold Sabertooth on the Codus deck that he made.
Nice, that's cool.
Yeah.
It seems, man, like we're I don't know if it has any real legs, but in the current shape of the meta, like I think that
I
a
think
creature based strategy that can steal cards and cast them for free and it's indestructible is pretty good.
hmm the main idea we thought behind it was using hatred as like a pseudo egg ad nauseum in our deck, because like ad naus really outside of red and black shells is not the craziest thing to do. Um, that I think that's why like Grixus is better than Jeskai, just because they have like all the rituals and all the hard tutors like demonic tutor,
Yeah.
and I think hatred in this deck is awesome because you just pay 18 life and then you hit someone with Codus for 20 damage, so it's one below commander damage, and then you get to see 20 of their cards and cast them for free.
Yeah, that's it's yeah, I'm ad nauseing with your deck.
Yeah,
It's gonna be
yeah,
good.
yeah.
That's really good.
I
Um
guess we're up to like the ending point. Do you have any other
yeah.
questions you want to hit on? Like, I'm okay with going a little over. I just have things to do later, though.
Yeah, no, you're good. I've my lunch break is over and I've got to check like get back on Teams, so I'm present for work. And I
Gotcha.
have a meeting coming up in a few minutes, so no big deal. No, I think that thanks for doing this with me. I'm really glad, and more so than just a sanity check for me, that seeing some of these different like unique ways you can convert like with this deck is super exciting, and it's kind of given me like I've got some stuff to try out tonight. Oh, one last question. That is, I so you've obviously played the deck a ton. But do you still like? Are there any like practicing habits that you have, or anything like when you like? Do you shuffle up the deck 1 or 2 times a week just to kind of like stay on top of it, or just trying to get some perspective? If there's anything I could start doing that may help me.
Yeah, sure. I try to keep extremely practice in terms of mulligans, right? And I'll talk to, like, obviously this sounds like I'm schizophrenic or some shit, but um I I like to go through mulligans just like at least once a day or at least like a couple times a week. Um just because I think mulligans, while not being the most sexy thing in the game, right? Oh, you're not resolving like six Ristic studies or whatever, right? Um,
Yeah,
you are setting yourself up for the game, and just being able to think through all your mulligans, like multiple times, will help you in the long run. Just have a more consistent baseline of gameplay.
gotcha. Okay.
It's like it's like riding a bike, right? Or like uh I guess a better example is like in the NVA, right? People have to throw the basketball into the hoop, right? Um,
Yeah,
and we can use an analogy to that, where that's how you win the game, right? Technically speaking, is throwing it in the hoop, but everyone has to know how to dribble, and that's
yeah,
what I accrue mulliganing to.
gotcha. Okay, makes sense. I
Is
got you, man.
there anything else for today?
No, that's it, man. Thank you so much. I really appreciate your time and talking to me. And yeah, I'll try and report back and after tonight and see if anything I did helped. Or I know I've got the 24th. We have a tournament here in Knoxville at a
Oh,
convention, and I'm
sweet.
thinking about my father. My father-in-law is a huge. He really wants to start like tournament grinding.
Hmm.
So I'm gonna see if maybe he wants to fly out to Denver because we have direct flights from Knoxville to Denver.
Oh, that's sweet.
Um,
Yeah,
yeah. So
we have a 5K coming up in on June on Father's Day, so maybe that's something that both of you guys
yeah.
can
Oh my gosh,
practice
there we
for.
go. Jason, you just gave me my in.
Right there.
You just gave me
I'll
the
send
internet
you the
Father's
link.
Day.
I'll send you the link. It's actually at a Dave and Buster's, and it's called Mortal Kombat.
Yeah, dude, I was in the Gold Sabretooth stream last night, like watching him make the mat, and oh my god, I got to get there just to get that mat.
Yeah, it looks so good.
It looks really fucking good. But all right, dude. Well, I have to hop off here and get to my next meeting. But I really appreciate you, Jason. Thanks for talking to me, and yeah, maybe we'll see each other soon.
Sounds good. Have a wonderful day.
All right, you too, buddy.